The trade that made the NBA stop and stare. The moment that footage surfaced, NBA fans knew something felt off. Mikal Bridges, Kevin Durant, and Chris Paul were all suddenly back in the same conversation. Not because they were wearing the same jersey, not because they were chasing the same ring, but because one trade in Phoenix reopened an entire chapter of unfinished NBA drama. And the deeper you look at this deal, the more it feels like the Suns did not just trade for a player. They walked straight back into a pattern they have been trying to escape for years. The Charlotte Hornets are sending Mikal Bridges, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick to the Phoenix Suns. In return, Charlotte gets Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and a 2033 first-round pick. On paper, that sounds like a simple offseason move. A few veterans, some draft capital, one athletic forward changing cities. But in the NBA, simple trades rarely stay simple. Because this deal came just days after Charlotte already shocked the league by moving LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That means the Hornets did not just adjust their roster, they ripped out the heart of an entire era. First LaMelo, then Miles. Two familiar faces gone almost back-to-back. Two players who once looked like part of Charlotte's future suddenly became pieces of someone else's plan. For Mikal Bridges, this is more than a new jersey. Charlotte was the only NBA home he had ever truly known. He spent years there, played hundreds of games there, gave that fan base big nights, highlight dunks, scoring bursts, and hoped that maybe someday the Hornets would finally turn the corner. But that corner never came. The playoffs never came. And now, after all that time, he is leaving the franchise before ever getting a real postseason moment in that uniform. That is the cold part of the league. One day, you are part of the foundation. The next day, the front office decides the foundation needs to be torn up. And for Phoenix, this is where the story gets dangerous. The Suns are not a patient franchise right now. Devin Booker is still there. The pressure is still there. The memories of the Kevin Durant experiment are still there. Phoenix already knows what it feels like to gamble big, give up valuable pieces, and watch the championship dream turn into frustration. They already watched one Bridges leave town in the Durant trade. Now, years later, another Bridges is arriving in Phoenix, and somehow the whole thing feels like the NBA is repeating itself with different names. That is why fans are split. Some people see Mikal Bridges as a powerful scorer who can help Phoenix compete right away. They see athleticism, size, transition offense, and a player desperate to finally taste playoff basketball. Others see a risky move, a short-term swing, and another example of the Suns trying to fix a deeper problem with another headline trade. Charlotte, meanwhile, looks like a team playing the long game. They got veterans who can shoot, defend, and keep the roster stable. They got future draft value. They got flexibility. And most importantly, they got out of a timeline that no longer made sense after LaMelo was gone. So the question is not just who won the trade. The real question is this: did Phoenix just find the missing piece, or did they make the same mistake all over again? Because Mikal Bridges is walking into a city that has already watched big promises collapse under bright lights. Kevin Durant left. Chris Paul is part of the past. Mikal Bridges became a symbol of what Phoenix gave away. And Devin Booker is still standing there, waiting for the front office to finally build something that actually lasts. Now, Mikal Bridges becomes the next test. If this works, Phoenix gets tougher, more athletic, and more dangerous. If it fails, that 2033 pick could become another painful reminder that the Suns keep paying tomorrow's price for today's hope. So before we go deeper, tell me where you are watching from right now. And be honest, if you think Phoenix made a smart move, comment 1. If you think the Suns just made another dangerous mistake, comment 2. And if you want more NBA trade drama, player stories, and behind-the-scenes league breakdowns, make sure you subscribe, because this story is only getting started. Charlotte didn't rebuild, they blew it up. Charlotte did not just make a trade. Charlotte sent a message. When the Hornets moved LaMelo Ball, the NBA already knew something big was happening. But when Mikal Bridges followed him out the door just days later, that message became impossible to ignore. This was not a soft reset. This was not a front office tweaking around the edges. This was a full demolition of the old timeline. For years, Charlotte sold hope around familiar names. LaMelo was the flashy star, the creative engine, the player who could sell tickets with one pass. Mikal Bridges was the powerful finisher, the athlete who could turn a normal possession into a highlight. Together, they gave fans a reason to believe that maybe the Hornets were finally building towards something real. But belief is not the same as winning. And after another season ended without the playoffs, Charlotte had to face the truth. The team was stuck, not bad enough to fully bottom out, not good enough to scare anyone, and not stable enough to convince the front office that this core deserved more time. That is one of the most dangerous places an NBA team can be. So the Hornets made the kind of decision fans hate, but front offices sometimes have to make. They chose the future over the familiar. They chose picks, flexibility, and a new timeline over emotional attachment. They looked at Bridges, looked at his contract situation, looked at the direction of the roster, and decided that holding on would only delay the inevitable. That is why this move feels so cold. Mikal Bridges was not traded because he could not play. He was traded because Charlotte no longer wanted to build around what he represented. His numbers were solid, his role was real, his connection to the city had history. But in the NBA, history does not always protect you when the standings keep telling the same painful story. The Hornets now appear to be shifting their focus toward a younger core, future draft control, and a cleaner long-term structure. That means every move from here has a purpose: taking on contracts, collecting picks, creating financial room, and waiting for the right moment to strike. It may not be exciting today, but it could be powerful tomorrow, because while Phoenix is chasing immediate answers, Charlotte is collecting future questions that could become stars. And that is the gamble. The Hornets are betting that patience will eventually pay more than loyalty to a core that never broke through. For Miles, that means leaving the only NBA home he knew. For Charlotte, it means finally admitting that the old plan did not work. And for the rest of the league, it means the Hornets are no longer pretending, they are rebuilding for real now. Mikal Bridges leaves the only home he knew. For Mikal Bridges, this trade is not just a business transaction, it is the end of an entire life chapter. Charlotte was where he grew up as an NBA player. It was where he learned the league, where he made mistakes, where he had big nights, where fans cheered him, questioned him, defended him, and debated what his future should be. It was the only place where his professional identity really existed. And then, in one trade call, it was over. That is what makes this story hit harder than a normal offseason move. Miles was not just some veteran passing through. He was part of the fabric of that franchise for years. He played hundreds of games in that jersey. He became one of the more recognizable names of this Hornets era. He had scoring nights, highlight plays, and stretches where he looked like the kind of athlete every team wants on the wing. But there was always one thing missing: the playoffs. 8 years in Charlotte, and not one real playoff stage to show for it. Not one postseason run where he could prove what his game looked like under pressure. Not one series where the national audience had to sit down and watch him for 2 straight weeks. That matters, because for NBA players, regular season numbers can build a reputation, but playoff moments define a legacy. And Bridges never got that chance in Charlotte. That is why Phoenix represents both opportunity and pressure. He is not going there as a young prospect anymore. He is not going there as someone with endless time to figure it out. He is walking into a franchise that expects results immediately, with a fan base tired of disappointment and a superstar in Devin Booker who does not have time for experiments. In Charlotte, losing could be explained by rebuilding, injuries, youth, or bad luck. In Phoenix, excuses will not sound the same. Every missed rotation will be noticed. Every scoring drought will be discussed. Every game where the fit looks awkward will become another reason for fans to ask whether the Suns gave up too much. And that is before you even get to the bigger conversation surrounding his past, his reputation, and whether Phoenix is comfortable absorbing everything that comes with his name. That part cannot be ignored. Basketball talent does not erase responsibility. A player's story is always bigger than box scores, and any team bringing him in must understand that the conversation will include both performance and accountability. So now Mikal Bridges gets what he never had in Charlotte: a real chance to play meaningful basketball. But meaningful basketball comes with meaningful judgment. If he helps Phoenix win, people will call the trade bold. If he struggles, they will call it reckless. And if the Suns fall short again, his arrival may be remembered less as a solution and more as another chapter in Phoenix's long search for the missing piece. Phoenix is gambling again. The Phoenix Suns have been here before. That is what makes this trade so dangerous. This franchise knows what it feels like to look at a roster, see Devin Booker in his prime, feel the pressure of time, and decide that patience is no longer an option. Phoenix has already made the big swing. They've already sacrificed depth, chemistry, and draft capital for star power. They have already convinced themselves that one more move could be the move that finally changes everything. And now, here they are again. Mikal Bridges is not Kevin Durant. Nobody is saying that. Durant is one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen. Bridges is a very different player, in a very different situation, with a very different level of expectation. But the pattern feels familiar. Phoenix is once again giving up valuable future assets for a player they hope can help right now. That is the part fans cannot stop arguing about, because the Suns did not need another headline. They needed clarity. They needed a roster that makes sense around Booker. They needed shooting, defense, toughness, role definition, and a path to becoming more than a play-in team with expensive ambitions. The question is whether Bridges actually gives them that, or whether he simply gives them another name to explain. On one side, there is a case for the move. Bridges can score, he can attack the rim, he can run the floor. He gives Phoenix physicality and athleticism. He has played heavy minutes before. He has carried offensive responsibility before. And for a team trying to avoid falling completely out of the Western Conference picture, those things matter. But the other side is louder. What did Phoenix really improve? Did they become a serious threat to Oklahoma City? Did they become deeper than Houston? Did they become tougher than Denver, more complete than Minnesota, or more dangerous than the other rising teams in the West? Or did they just move sideways while giving Charlotte a future pick that could look painful years from now? That is the fear. Phoenix is chasing the present with tools borrowed from the future. And every time a team does that, the bill eventually arrives. The 2033 pick may feel far away today. Fans may laugh at a draft pick that distant because nobody knows what the league will look like by then. But that is exactly why those picks are so valuable. 7 years in the NBA is not a small gap. 7 years can turn a contender into a lottery team. 7 years can change ownership plans, star loyalty, injuries, contracts, and everything a franchise thinks it knows about itself. Charlotte understands that. Phoenix is betting against it, and that is why this trade has the same uncomfortable energy as the Durant deal. Not because the players are equal, but because the instinct is the same. The Suns are still trying to buy certainty in a league that punishes desperation. The ghost of the Kevin Durant trade still follows Phoenix everywhere. When the Suns made that move, it looked like a championship shortcut. Devin Booker had his superstar partner. Chris Paul was still around. DeAndre Ayton was still part of the picture. And Durant, one of the greatest scorers basketball has ever seen, was supposed to turn Phoenix into a title machine overnight. But the NBA does not reward names alone. Phoenix gave up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, multiple picks, and a huge part of its identity to chase that dream. At first, fans understood it. When Kevin Durant is available, teams take risks. But as the seasons passed, the cost became heavier. The chemistry never felt natural. The depth disappeared. The pressure kept growing. And instead of becoming unstoppable, the Suns became top-heavy, fragile, and easier to question after every loss. That is why this Miles Bridges trade feels so familiar. No, Miles is not Durant. The expectations are different. The talent level is different. But the instinct is the same. Phoenix is once again trading future value for a player they hope can help immediately. Once again, the Suns are trying to fix a deeper problem with another aggressive move. And the painful part is Mikal Bridges. Phoenix traded him away to get Durant. Then Mikal went on to become a champion elsewhere, proving exactly why players like him matter. He defended, sacrificed, played his role, and helped build a winning culture. Meanwhile, the Suns are still trying to find the balance they once gave away. Now another Bridges is coming to Phoenix. Different player, same city, same pressure, same uncomfortable question. Did the Suns learn from the Durant trade? Or are they walking into another version of the same mistake? Kevin Durant escapes Phoenix. Kevin Durant leaving Phoenix did not feel like a normal breakup. It felt like an escape. For 2 years, the Suns lived under massive pressure. Every loss became a headline. Every playoff disappointment became proof that the Durant experiment was failing. Phoenix had paid a massive price to get him, so anything short of a championship felt like a disaster. Then Durant moved on to Houston, and suddenly, the story changed. The footage of him enjoying his offseason was not really the big issue. Fans argued, the internet reacted, and clips spread fast. But the deeper meaning was simple. Durant was finally outside the chaos of Phoenix. Houston gives him something Phoenix never really had around him, a younger core, more energy, and a chance to reset instead of repair damage. The Rockets are not asking him to save a broken plan. They are hoping he can elevate a growing one, but the questions are still there. Durant is older now. His health will be watched. His leadership will be debated. His fit will be analyzed every night. That is what happens when you are Kevin Durant. No stop in his career is quiet. No chapter is simple. Still, Houston may be his best chance to rewrite the end. If Durant finds rhythm with that young group, Phoenix becomes just a painful detour. If it fails, critics will say the same problems followed him again. For Durant, this is not just another team. It is one more chance to prove he still controls the story. The helmet that became NBA history. Then comes the funniest and most emotional part of the story, Chris Paul and the helmet. When Mikal Bridges was traded from Phoenix to Brooklyn in the Kevin Durant deal, Chris Paul did not send a sad goodbye speech. He sent him a Brooklyn Nets football helmet. It was classic CP3. The joke was simple. Mikal was heading to the Eastern Conference, where the basketball was physical and the matchups were brutal. Chris Paul basically told him, "You're going to need protection." On the surface, it was trolling. But underneath, it showed how close they really were. Only a real teammate can joke with you like that on one of the hardest days of your career. Chris Paul and Mikal had been through the finals together. They had chased a championship in Phoenix. They had felt the pain of falling short. So when Mikal got moved, CP3 found a way to make him laugh instead of letting the trade feel completely cold. Years later, that helmet became part of NBA history. Mikal told the story again while celebrating a championship with the New York Knicks. Suddenly, the prank was not just a prank anymore. It became a memory from a different era. The old Suns, the finals run, the team that almost won, and the friendships that survived after the roster was broken apart. That is what makes the NBA special. Trades change jerseys, but they do not always erase bonds. Chris Paul never got the ring he spent his career chasing. Mikal eventually did. And somehow, a football helmet sent as a joke became a symbol of friendship, heartbreak, and basketball history. Mikal Bridges won what Phoenix lost. Mikal Bridges winning a championship is the part Suns fans cannot ignore. Because Phoenix chose to move him, they gave up a player who defended, sacrificed, stayed available, and fit perfectly next to stars. He was not the loudest name, but he was the kind of player winning teams need. He did not demand the ball every possession. He did the hard thing. He guarded, he ran, he connected lineups, he helped teams make sense. Phoenix traded that for a superstar dream. At the time, it made sense to chase Kevin Durant. But now, looking back, the pain is obvious. The Suns lost balance, they lost depth, they lost one of the clearest culture pieces they had. And while Phoenix kept searching for answers, Mikal found the one thing the Suns wanted most, a championship. That contrast is brutal. The Suns had stars, but the Knicks had a team. The Suns had expectations, but the Knicks had chemistry. The Suns chased a shortcut, while Mikal became part of something built on toughness, trust, and role acceptance. Now, Phoenix brings in Mikal Bridges, and the symbolism is impossible to miss. One Bridges left in a failed championship gamble, another Bridges arrives as Phoenix tries to recover from the damage. That does not mean Mikal cannot help. He can bring scoring, strength, and athleticism, but he also brings questions about fit, consistency, and pressure. And if this trade fails, Suns fans will look back at Mikal again and wonder why the franchise keeps giving away the type of players winning teams spend years trying to find. Mikal Bridges became proof of what Phoenix lost. Now Mikal Bridges has to prove Phoenix did not make another mistake. Devin Booker is still waiting. Through all the chaos, Devin Booker is still there. Durant came and left. Chris Paul came and left. Mikal Bridges was traded. Cam Johnson was traded. Bradley Beal became another complicated chapter. Coaches changed. The roster changed. The identity kept shifting, but Booker stayed. That is what makes every Suns move feel so urgent. Booker is not a young player waiting for the franchise to figure things out anymore. He is in his prime. He has already reached the finals. He already knows what a real contender feels like. And every year Phoenix falls short, another piece of his championship window disappears. So the Mikal Bridges trade has to be judged through that lens. Does this move really help Booker win? Or does it just keep Phoenix interesting enough to stay in the playoff conversation? That is the difference between a serious contender and a team stuck in the middle. Mikal Bridges can help the Suns score. He can bring athleticism. He can give them another strong body in the rotation. But does he raise their ceiling? Does he make them dangerous against Oklahoma City, Houston, Denver, Minnesota, or the other elite teams in the West? That is the real question. Booker does not need another experiment. He needs direction. He needs a roster that makes sense. He needs a front office that knows whether it is chasing a title or just trying to survive another season. Because stars wait, but not forever. And if Phoenix keeps gambling without building something stable, the loudest question in the NBA may soon become very simple. How much longer will Devin Booker believe the lesson behind the chaos? In the end, this story is bigger than one trade. Charlotte chose the future. Phoenix chose another gamble. Kevin Durant chose a reset. Chris Paul became part of NBA history. Mikal Bridges became a champion. Mikal Bridges became the next test. And Devin Booker is still waiting for the Suns to finally build something that lasts. That is the lesson. The NBA is not just about collecting talent. It is about fit, timing, patience, culture, and knowing when to chase and when to stop. Phoenix has spent years chasing. Durant was supposed to be the answer. Beal was supposed to help. Now Mikal Bridges is supposed to add another piece. But at some point, a franchise has to ask whether it is building a contender or just reacting to pressure. Charlotte may not win right away, but at least the Hornets picked a direction. They collected assets, opened flexibility, and accepted the pain of rebuilding. Phoenix, meanwhile, is still trying to win now without the clean structure of a true contender. That is dangerous. Because Devin Booker deserves more than constant roster experiments. He deserves clarity. If the Suns want to compete, they need more than names. They need defenders, shooters, trust, chemistry, and a real identity. If they cannot build that, then every trade will feel like another temporary fix. The human side matters too. Players are not just contracts. Trades move people, families, friendships, and careers. A player can give years to one city and be gone overnight. A joke from an old teammate can become a lifelong memory. A role player can become a champion somewhere else. And a superstar can spend years chasing peace while the world judges every clip. So the lesson is simple. Do not confuse movement with progress. Do not confuse star power with team building. And do not assume the winner of a trade is decided on the day it happens. Sometimes the real answer comes years later. Now tell me what you think. If Phoenix can still build a real contender around Devin Booker, comment 1. If you think the Suns are repeating the same mistake again, comment 2. Subscribe for more NBA stories, like the video, and share this with another basketball fan who needs to hear the full story.